Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into around what can and can't happen at maintenance calories. Just because, again, I think there's some misconceptions about what we can do, what we can't do, and want to dive into that today. But first, before I go into that, I just want to go over my free body recomp checklist. Within this checklist, I go over 10 things you need for a body recomp, right? And hint, it's more than just calories and training. So make sure you check out what those 10 things are. But I also dive into the two different types of body recomp, what body recomp is and isn't, the importance of focusing on body composition over just scale weight. So make sure you go and check that out in the show notes. All right, so let's talk about maintenance calories today. I think this is super important, and I'm going to leave you with some things here. But what can and can't happen at maintenance calories? And with maintenance calories, like I said, there's a lot of myths around what can and can't happen. Again, I think people either they underestimate what they can do at maintenance, but then they also overestimate in terms of the fat loss side of things. And I think if we understand why we're doing it, what is going to happen, what we can expect here, I think you're more likely to, because I think the patience is going to be the biggest thing with maintenance. You're obviously going to see the most results, quickest results in your physique for most people by manipulating your body weight or, again, losing body fat. Now, obviously, if you're super lean, you're not going to see drastic changes in your physique by decreasing. But for most people, like some sort of fat loss, like seeing your weight trend down for most people is going to deliver these sort of quickest results from day to day. I think there's a time and place for that, but at some point that we need to shift away from that. And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck in their fitness journey, and it can actually do more harm than good if it is just, hey, I need to be seeing this constant change in my physique every single day, or how I feel, or my scale weight there. Inside my coaching, I focus on my main goal with people as I want to help them build muscle. I want to improve body comp, not just losing weight, put your metabolic health and overall health in a good spot. And I want to make sure that we also enhance performance in the gym, but also outside of the gym. And so when I'm coaching people, like these are the things I'm looking at, because I feel like if that's what we do with all these things, like that's what's going to lead to somebody doing this for the long haul, feeling their best and improving other aspects of their life, because that's ultimately what we need, what we want fitness to do. We don't want it to take away from our life. We need it to add to other things, because if that's the case, then it's a negative, and it needs to add to our life. And so that's why I think maintenance calories it's a good thing that we can do to help get people to that point, because we're not always trying to be in a deficit there. So let's talk about what can happen at maintenance. I'm going to have a go list by list thing. I'll probably expand on a few of these, and then we're going to talk about that's why I use it. And then we're also going to talk about what can't happen. And then I have a few bonus points that I want to talk about with maintenance calories, some sort of extra things like I think from a sex-based difference, why I think some women may benefit, like most women in general, I think benefit more from being at maintenance, artificially low maintenance calories, what may be going on there, and then some other myths. And then just how do you know that you're actually at your maintenance calories? Because I think that's really where a lot of people, they're not sure on there. So let's talk about what can happen at maintenance. So first, you can totally build muscle at maintenance, okay? Especially if you're training with intent and consistently hitting protein, and you have other lifestyle factors at play here. A lot of people think that when they're at maintenance, they're not going to be able to build muscle. Things just aren't going to happen. They're just maintaining. They're not really going in a positive direction with their health and fitness or their body composition at maintenance. And that's totally not the case. You can totally build muscle here. And I think it really does come down to, one, where are you coming from? What is your current body composition? What are your current body fat levels? But then it also comes down to, what are the things that we're actually doing, right? Like I said, training with intent. If you're at maintenance calories and your training is subpar for whatever reason, whether your programming's not good, you don't push it, you don't know what to do, you're maybe not feeling it properly around training, and training's not good, you're going to get less out of maintenance, right? So a lot of people overemphasize the calorie balance that they're in, the energy balance that they're in, and then they overlook the thing that is super important, right? Some of these inputs there, right? They put the energy balance ahead of really the inputs that are really going to be the thing that can drive change. Energy balance is important, but it's not the sole thing there, right? Like we have to have our inputs there, but it can be a way to help you get to that point and put your body in a better position to see results. So we can totally see muscle growth at maintenance. You can really build muscle at an energy balance, at any energy balance, whether you're in a deficit, you're at maintenance, or you're in a surplus. Obviously, it's like a tier of, I think the lowest amount of muscle growth you'll see, or the lowest potential you have a muscle growth, is going to be in a deficit. The next, then there's this like steep curve upwards of, now you're feeling enough, you're going to see more muscle growth. And then there's probably a small uptick of, when you're in a surplus and nailing these things, you're probably putting your body in the absolute best position to build as much muscle as possible. But most people they think they're at that point, but they're not. Like they're not trying to build an amount of muscle that would warrant really pushing a surplus. So for a lot of people, if they nail things like hitting enough protein, dialing the other lifestyle things in, training with intent, you can totally build muscle at your maintenance calories. And so this is why I often say, in someone's building phase, we're going to eat most of our time at maintenance. Again, it depends on the person. The leaner they are, the more muscle they want to build, you're probably going to have to push body weight up and you're going to have to be intentional with the surplus. But like I said, most people are at a body fat level to where they don't necessarily need to continue to push body fat levels higher. And they just don't have an amount of muscle that to me would really warrant pushing a surplus to maximize muscle growth. And again, the long-term goal of that there. We get energy balance, we're at maintenance calories. And again, this is where we're not really pushing our body weight up, we're not really pushing our body weight down, and we can totally build muscle, especially if we dial in our inputs. The next thing that can happen is you can optimize your metabolism by fueling your body instead of underfeeding it. Again, we're not going to be able to just continue to, like, when I say optimize our metabolism, like, we're going to put it in the spot to where your body's, again, if we're nailing other aspects of our inputs, training, nutrition, right? This is just simply looking at the energy balance here. And you're eating enough, your body's going to be in the best position your metabolism's just going to run optimally at that point, right? Whereas in a deficit, there are going to be some compensations. So when you're in a deficit and there's those compensations, like, just the whole entire system is just not flowing as optimally as it could be, right? In a surplus, again, this may be the case, but at some point, things are going to start to become suboptimal, right? From a metabolism standpoint there. And so by fueling enough and being an energy maintenance, energy balance, we're going to be able to optimize our metabolism. And this is going to have downstream effects on hormones, mainly hormones, right? But even gut health, which in turn, those impact hormones. So by making sure we eat enough, like, we can optimize our metabolism. And so we don't have to worry about metabolic adaptation, having artificially low maintenance calories, which I'm going to hit on later, what that may look like for people. Again, if you look at this, some other examples of this would be a female that has been fat loss dieting for an extended period of time. Maybe their metabolism's a little bit lower because their thyroid has been downregulated slightly. Again, that will start to have downstream impacts on how they feel, energy levels, potentially even gut health. And then maybe this also shows up as some menstrual cycle irregularities. So if we can get this person back to their maintenance calories, energy balance, thyroid starts to come back to normal. Menstrual cycle starts to be regular. Somebody will feel better. Training starts to get better. So now you can push training, and that can lead to more muscle growth. You're going to put your body in a better position for muscle growth. I didn't hit on this, but bone health for women as well too, right? We're adequately fueling our body. We're giving it the nutrients it needs and enough fuel to work with. That's going to be optimized as well too. Obviously, you still need to train and everything like that to really see the benefits of improving that. But when we're in a deficit, that could impact your bone health, right? So those are a lot of things, even hunger and cravings. When you're at maintenance, like, that system's going to be much more regulated. Whereas when you're in a deficit, that can start to get dysregulated there. So this is especially true for somebody who's been underfeeding and doing a lot of exercise and undereating. Getting back to maintenance is really going to optimize your metabolism. That's the thing. Like, people think that when they diet and there's quote unquote metabolic adaptation from dieting, lower total daily energy expenditure, that they think that's a sentence for life, but it's not. The body will adapt to whatever you're doing to it. And so by getting back to maintenance, we can optimize our metabolism there. You can train harder and recover better, which is going to set the stage for physique improvements, right? You're going to have more fuel. You're going to be able to push training. You're going to be able to eat enough carbohydrates to really push training. And that's going to allow you to have those adaptations that we need to see body comp changes there. A lot of people they don't realize that, again, yes, being at maintenance is going to help put your body in better position to build muscle, but it's also indirect in that now you're going to have more fuel to be able to push training. And that is a very important part of the process when it comes to body composition there. But also, even from a recovery standpoint, you're also going to be able to do more training because you're recovering better. You're getting enough fuel. Whereas when you're under fueling, you may not be able to, you're not going to be able to recover as well. And training is going to go down, and you're not going to be able to push training as much as you could there. So the next is, and this goes hand in hand, but you can see performance gains, right? More reps, better lifts, increase endurance, or whatever your goals are. So this is why if somebody is not necessarily just focused on adding lean body mass, if it is like a performance related thing, like, you want to be at maintenance calories when you're doing that. Now, your needs may change in terms of how many calories you consume to get to that point, especially if you have a performance goal of a long endurance run or whatever it may be. But we don't want to stay in a deficit if we have performance related goals. Like, we need to get to an energy balance because that's going to be most helpful for recovery, for your performance, and everything like that. Again, there may be a time where you try and push body weight down to get ready for a competition, or if you need to perform better in the competition, but you don't want that to be when you're getting ready for that competition. The only thing would be, like, obviously an MMA fighters or someone who has they have to be at a certain weight for something. Like, for them, you still want to try and maintain body weight or be as close as possible to the fight weight, but you also don't want to be as low because that may not be as good from their training and recovery in the off season. But then in their fight camp leading up to it, like, you're probably going to have to drop some weight, but you really want to try to minimize how much. And if we can really get to the point where they don't really need to lose any body weight, body fat, that's great. And then it's just all water weight manipulations leading up to it. That would be the best spot for somebody to be in. But what you want to be careful with is, as an MMA fighter, like really dropping like a ton of weight leading up to your fight. That's probably not going to put you in the best position to recover, be as good in your training. It's going to help hurt fatigue, endurance, all that stuff is going to be impacted by that. And you want to try to, when it comes to people that have performance related goals or events or things like that, you really want to try and keep the fat loss side of things as far away as possible. Now, obviously a bodybuilding competition, like that's part of it, is you're not performing per se for anything. So your thing is you need to get as lean as possible, and you don't want to stay that all the time. So you do need to be pushing that body weight down for them specifically. But literally outside of that, like that would be the only one that you'd want to see body weight come down and be in a deficit heading into competition. But you even see people that the goal is, hey, let's try and get you as lean as possible, as early as possible, so then we can sit around maintenance leading up to it. But that's easier said than done, because it's just so freaking hard to get that lean anyways. So again, from a performance related thing, like we need to make sure we're at least eating an energy balance. But I could argue too that even being in a surplus, maybe for a short period of time, would be beneficial for people. But at some point, it's going to get to the point to where a surplus is also could potentially not be good for performance either. You need to look into that. If you take some sort of athlete, being in a surplus is probably going to be good for recovery for a period of time. You're going to be well fueled, but eventually you're going to continue to gain body weight, and that probably isn't going to be great for your performance. So this is why energy balance is so powerful there. You can solidify habits without the stress of being in a deficit. Being in a deficit is stressful, so we can continue to solidify our habits, our inputs that are going to drive change there, right? So again, we can also do that in a deficit, but eventually that's an extra stressor on the body. And so even if you are someone that maybe you have some weight you need to lose, in order to lose body fat and do it in a way that's going to be good for long-term health, and obviously maintaining that long-term and maintaining your habits, like you're going to have to build those habits that they're going to help you get there. And even if we know we need to lose body weight, but if we're keeping our weight stable, then, we're improving our habits, we're improving our exercise habits, we're improving our training, we're improving our circadian rhythm, our sleep, our stress management, improving our diet quality, like that's going to help set you up long-term moving forward. So again, we can also solidify these habits at maintenance calories, and you're still going to see positive changes in your body composition. But as we'll talk about, it just may be a little bit slower. But is that always a bad thing? I don't think things being a little bit slower from body composition change is ultimately a bad thing. And then you just feel and function at your best, right? Cognitively, hormonally, and physically. So you just feel your best here at maintenance calories when we're fueling enough, right? We're not overfueling, but we're not underfueling here. So yeah, again, you just feel your best. And like I said, we want people to feel good. If somebody can feel good, they're more likely to stick to the things that they need to in the process, versus if they feel terrible all the time and they think that's what they need to do to see change and be healthy, then you're just less likely to do it. Like we don't want to do things on there. Now, again, we need to push at times. There's going to be some uncomfortableness, but you shouldn't always feel that way. So what may happen too is you may see the scale trend up slowly from muscle growth, water, and glycogen. Let's say you're going into a deficit and then changing over to maintenance, like you're probably going to see your scale weight come up a little bit. That doesn't mean you're in a surplus. It just means, hey, like things like glycogen, which is a storage form of carbohydrates, is going up. That's going to make you look fuller in a good way. You have more food in your system. You're eating a little bit more food. So you're probably going to see weight come up a little bit. And then over time, if we're doing things right, we can build muscle at maintenance. And so that weighs something. And so it's not going to be this one in, one out type thing where you're just going to stay at maintenance and just build all this muscle and just lose body fat 1-to-1 there. And which we'll talk about. One thing that can't happen at maintenance is you can't lose body fat, but that's spoiler alert there. But if you're building muscle at maintenance, like your weight's going to come up a little bit. So you may see it come up over time. You can definitely look better over time at maintenance calories, especially if we're adding muscle. If we're focused on all overall health improvements as well too, like you just look better overall. It may not be a massive physique change in terms of like now you have shredded abs, but you typically see people's skin look better. You'll just see like people just look more energized. And that definitely there's something there, right? Especially if we're sleeping more, we're eating we're eating our micronutrients. So again, it comes back to our inputs and dialing those in the process. But you can look better over time. And again, you're also adding some muscle, which can help with your look. Now, there's some situations where maybe that isn't the case for some people, right? If you do have a lot of body fat, like it's going to be hard to notice a lot of muscle change because again, we would need to lose body fat at some point. But again, the changes are just probably going to be a little bit slower than they would be in a cut there. You can improve your body composition without scale loss, especially if you came from under eating. So if you're someone that's come from under eating, like you can definitely see improvements in your physique by just eating at maintenance, keeping your weight stable, and you'll see change in your body composition. Like it will get better despite not seeing your scale weight go down or losing body fat per se. So that's something that we need to keep in mind here too, is that your body composition can improve without scale loss for sure, especially for doing the inputs that we discussed. And then the other big thing that we can do too is we can set the stage for more effective fat loss later by improving hormone function, recovery, and training quality if done right. So again, those habits that I talked about we're building, if we're continuing to work on those inputs, making sure those are there, we're continuing to solidify those habits, we're fueling our body enough, giving it nutrients it needs, we're going to set the stage for more effective fat loss later. You're going to find that if you're someone who you've tried to fat loss diet multiple times, it hasn't happened, or maybe you've seen some success and then you inevitably plateau out and then give up and you end up losing the same 10 to 15 pounds. If you can really work on just, hey, let's get away from trying to drop body fat or lose weight on the scale for a period of time, feel enough, work on our inputs, that's going to set you up for more successful fat loss, to where then you do this for a period of time at maintenance, and then now you go into a fat loss phase, things just happen. Like it's like you're almost going downhill with things, downhill in a positive, right? Like the downward momentum versus feeling like you need to go uphill and you're working uphill, right? Like you're just pushing something downhill more. Yeah, you know what? You got to get that momentum going. You still have to push things a little bit, but we have some momentum going with us. Whereas same thing, if we're trying to push something uphill, it's like you can get uphill, but you just have to work extra hard. And it is going to be really hard to see any progress with that. I think that's a big thing though, is we can put your body in the best position from a fat loss perspective, right? So it probably comes back to, hey, your body's just in a better spot hormonally, physically, cognitively, you feel better. You gave your body a break from feeling like it needs to be in that stressful state of being in a deficit, right? So you're just taking some stress off the body, and that puts us in a better position to lose body fat. So for these reasons, I often use maintenance calories with clients during their building phase or when they need a strategic shift away from fat loss without halting progress. This doesn't, just because we're switching to a maintenance phase doesn't mean that that progress is stopping, right? It's just a different type of progress than what you're probably what we're used to of, hey, you just need to lose body weight. You need to get leaner, right? You need to have the best body composition in the world. So again, I'll often use maintenance calories. I truly believe that if we can spend most of our time at maintenance calories, like you're going to see great body composition change. And then when we need to dip into a deficit, we certainly can do that there. Like I said, for a lot of clients, it's, hey, in a building phase, we're just going to make sure we fuel enough. We don't need to push weight gain up. We don't need to push that, right? Now, again, there's going to be certain situations, someone's super lean. Hey, we might have to push weight up a little bit, but eventually we'll get them to maintenance anyways. Like we won't want to always just have them in a surplus. So it could be a break from a surplus, but then it can also be a break but also shifting away from fat loss. So if you're someone who's always tried to lose scale weight and get leaner, this can be a great shift for you and something that I'll use, right? So it's like you take someone, maybe they've lost 10 to 15 pounds. They still have 20-ish pounds they want to lose. Let's switch to maintenance for a little bit to make that last 10 to 20 pounds easier, but then also you'll look better and have better body composition in that process. So let's talk about what can't happen at maintenance. So if we're truly at energy balance, you're not going to lose body fat. And so there's some nuance here where things can get a little confusing, right? But if we're truly at our maintenance calories, you're not going to lose body fat. And so this is why visible changes may be a little bit slower in this phase there. So yeah, but again, we'll talk about some distinct things that could happen in terms of, hey, my weight's stable. So am I actually at maintenance calories or am I not? What does this look like there? All right. So again, I think the big thing though is because we're not actively dropping weight, like I always tell clients, if you aren't seeing as much change as you want and our weight staying stable, it's probably because there's some recomposition going on, like you're adding some muscle, but because we're not tipping the energy balance into a deficit where we lose body fat, just progress is going to be a little bit slower. Like I said initially, losing body fat, losing weight, like that's going to be your quickest way to see very quick results. But we have to be careful with that. We can overshoot that. So we do need to be careful with it. You're not going to see dramatic scale shifts or drastic physique updates week to week. You're not going to be seeing this huge transformation where, October you look here and then November you're going to be drastically different. Like it's just not going to happen. A lot of the things that we're doing are under the hood and slower in nature there. So you're not going to see those dramatic scale shifts or drastic physique updates. You're not going to get shredded during this phase. And that's not the point of it, right? You're not going to develop abs and get super lean and change and get super shredded at maintenance calories. That's not the goal of this phase. That's what the fat loss phase is for, but we can't always run a fat loss phase, and we may not be in the best position to be in a fat loss phase based on some of our inputs. If you're lean and already have a decent amount of muscle, you're not going to build a massive amount of muscle at your energy balance at your maintenance calories, right? But everything else can still potentially happen, right? So all the other things we talked about can still happen. We can still build our habits. We can still put our metabolic health in a better position and everything like that, right? So just because you're lean and again, that person that is already lean has a good amount of muscle, they want to continue to build more muscle. Like you're not going to see as much benefit you're not going to build that much muscle here at this point at maintenance calories. But like I said, there's other things that can happen that are positive there. So those are the things that can't happen there. So that way you understand what's going on. So I think For me, because of all these things I said, I do think women really benefit best from being at their energy balance more like most of the time. Again, there's a period of time where, hey, maybe we push a deficit, maybe it's a small deficit, which can prolong the deficit process. Again, we have to look at the biofeedback of the client specifically there. Are they feeling good? What does that look like? But I truly believe that for women, like if they want to have the best body composition, spending more time at your maintenance calories is where you need to be. I don't think you need to really push surpluses. The only time that I would really push a surplus for a female would be really low body weight or really lean and you want to continue to build a lot of muscle. It's just really hard to get super lean as a female, right? You can do it. And it's not to say you shouldn't do it, but it's really challenging and you do need to be strategic with what you do there. But women need to carry a little bit more body fat. And so to me, I don't want to push surplus with them too much. Again, there's certain situations where it may be beneficial. Maybe we want to test how high we can get our maintenance calories. They're really pushing scale weight up and pushing that surplus. I'm not a huge fan of for women. And then from a deficit standpoint, women have a higher stress response to deficits, to weight loss, to lower body fat percentages. So we have to be strategic with fat loss phases to where we can't just push fat loss all the time. So what that leads me to is I truly believe for female physiology, for body composition, overall health, spending as much time at maintenance as you can is going to be beneficial, right? For all the things that we discussed today there. So let's also talk though about artificially low maintenance calories. Actually, before I go into artificially low maintenance calories, I think it can be, we'll talk about that first, but all these things I'm going to talk about go hand in hand. So one could go before the other, but anyways, artificially low maintenance calories. So what is that? It's essentially where your body weight is stable. So you feel like you're at your maintenance calories, but because you are someone maybe who has lost a lot of body weight, you're really scared to see your scale weight go up at all. You also on top of it have like you train a lot, you like to train a lot, you like to get stuff done, you do a lot. You can see this person get to a point to where they're at artificially low maintenance calories because they're trying to stay too lean, they're trying to keep their body weight as low as possible. Yeah, your weight is stable, but that is your artificially low maintenance calories. That's your adapted maintenance calories. And in this state, like it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but you have to understand you're probably not optimizing your metabolism. You're probably not eating as many calories as you could. You're probably not putting your body in the best position from a hormonal perspective. Again, we're looking at thyroid, we're looking at hunger and cravings, we're looking at libido, we're looking at menstrual cycle. Again, this is across the board from men and women as well too, right? Because for men, it could be, hey, your testosterone's not optimized here at this point. But you could also just be eating a lower calorie amount than what you could, right? And so that's, hey, I feel like I have to eat 1,600 calories to maintain my weight. I would bet that you have some sort of artificially low maintenance calories at that point, right? And like I said, it really comes down to this is the person that's scared to see their scale weight come up at all. And so we have to look out for that. This is where things can get a little tricky, and having a coach to help you coach you through this can be super helpful. Because like I said, you even take women, right, from a bone health perspective at these artificially low maintenance calories, we're probably not optimizing that. So we have to take that into consideration there. You do want to look out for that. And so that probably gets to the next question of how do we know we are at our maintenance calories? Like, how do I know that I can increase it? A little bit of it is somewhat of a guessing game. And this is why I think having a coach can be helpful to coach you through this, to make sure you don't overadjust, underadjust, make sure you're looking for the right things and you just don't overthink things there. Like I said, it is a guessing game. You can plug things into a calculator, but you really have to see what you have to get some data, and you have to track body weight and movement and activity for a couple of weeks to really see where things are at. But the things that I would say are that we're looking for here is you feel good, right? So biofeedback's good. You get your blood work back. Everything is good there. We can use blood work. Looking at things like thyroid can be helpful to see what's going on if we're potentially missing out on anything there. Looking at your insulin sensitivity, blood sugar regulation, blood glucose, like looking at all those things, making sure that's in line. Again, biofeedback's good. So, your libido's good. I guess for men and women, you could look at your testosterone. And obviously for women, you look at basically we could look at our sex hormones. That could be another sign there, but there's other things that we could look at that will tell us if that's low. We don't necessarily need blood work for that. Again, we're looking at energy levels, we're looking at mood, we're looking at training performance, we're looking at recovery, right? So some of this can be subjective. Gut health, we're looking at, like I said, libido, overall motivation, right? Because these are all signs of if these things are off, there's probably something going on within the body, right? And then again, even looking at your maintenance calories, do you feel like your maintenance calories are lower than, hey, I feel like I really have to be restrictive to maintain my weight? You may be at energy balance but it's adapted, right? It comes back to artificially low. And again, weight is somewhat stable, meaning, yeah, you're probably going to have some fluctuations from week to week, a couple pounds. Maybe your average weight for the week goes up by a pound or so. That doesn't mean you're in a surplus. Those are just within normal fluctuations. What we're looking at is trends over multiple weeks. If you have a 4-week span where you're 162 one week, 163 the next week, then 162 and a half, that doesn't mean you're in a surplus and then you're in a deficit. So you need to tighten up your maintenance calories more. All that means is that's a normal fluctuation right now. If you look at your average caloric intake or your average weight and it's, hey, I'm 163, then I'm 162 and a half, then I'm 162, then I'm 161.7, then I'm 161.4, like you're in a deficit, right? And so from there, we just have to figure out, is that the right move for you or not based on what's going on? So not a blanket that's good or bad, but if we truly want to find our maintenance calories, then we would have some wiggle room to probably increase our caloric intake. On the flip side, if you see a trend up, you're probably at a surplus. And why I say that though, where it could get tricky, and this is where it can get tricky over time is, let's say you're in that scenario where you're seeing your scale weight trend up 163, 163 and a half, 163.7, 164, 164.2, 164.5, right? You just continue to see this weight trend up. You could be building muscle. However, it's probably not going to happen that quickly. So you can assume you're probably at maintenance or at a small surplus. And so again, now we would just need to decide, is that the right thing for you or not? But what could happen is, okay, you see that fluctuation that I talked about where it goes back and forth for multiple weeks, or maybe it stays super consistent. But then we zoom out and we look at a 6 to 12 month time span. And it's okay, your average weight was 162 and now your average weight is 164, 165. That's not that you were necessarily in a surplus. That could just mean, hey, you built muscle during that period of time. And that's accounting for some of this, right? So it can get somewhat noisy. And so you do want someone to understand what is going on to decipher that, right? So just keep that in mind. Like weight maintenance does not automatically equal weight maintenance. Like you could see it change over extended periods of time there. Now, if we're seeing things trend down, you're probably in a deficit. And again, if you lose, say, 3 pounds over a 6 to 12 month time span, like, again, is that the worst thing in the world? No, because again, it comes back to your biofeedback, how you're feeling. What are these things looking like? Where is your current body composition? That's on the leaner side and that's happening. You're probably doing yourself some disservice. Someone that's at moderate body fat levels and they're seeing an improvement in how they look, they feel good, they feel better, blood work's improving, and they've lost 3 to 4 pounds over a 6 to 12 month span. Maybe they're in a deficit, but it's so small that, you just have to understand that progress is just going to probably be a little bit slower if you take that approach. You could probably increase your calories slightly if you wanted to. Again, it really just depends on the person. It's hard to say that if that's right or wrong, or if that's good or bad there. But then we also just want to look at progress pics and measurements too, because also, like I said, on the flip side, you can't lose body fat at maintenance calories, but again, what could be happening is over time, like you are seeing an improvement in your body composition, but weight staying the same. You could potentially be in a deficit, even though we're not necessarily seeing weight trend down. Now, again, you're probably in a small deficit. This is the person that truly is what people would think is recomping, is they're losing weight they're losing body fat and building muscle at the same time. So the scale weight doesn't necessarily change very much, but they're probably in a small deficit. And that's okay. Again, we just have to line it up with all these other things. And again, at some point, we're going to want to get to the point where, hey, let's increase our calories and get to maintenance there. And as I said, you're probably going to see a little bit slower results in that scenario there. But in that process, we want to look at progress pics and measurements, right? Because if your weight's staying the same, but your waist is going down, you're clearly looking better, like you're probably losing some body fat, which would mean you are in some sort of deficit. And like I said, we just have to weigh that too with everything else going on, where they're at, how they feel, et cetera there. So hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully this give you a better idea if you should use your maintenance calories or not, and why you should at some point there. So let me know if you have any questions on this episode or anything like that. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN_. That's where I'm most active. Make sure you give me a follow there. And if you haven't yet, make sure you, if you can, leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. And also, I do one-on-one coaching. So if you are interested in this and figuring this out for yourself, this is exactly what I do. So if you're interested, again, there's a link in the show notes to fill out the application, but then you can also reach out to me on Instagram as well too. So that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon.